On this super review, let's take a look at the V80 headphones from TRN Audio. So I've been looking at a number of in-ear monitor headphones lately, and well, we've got another pair. Similar to the KZs that I was listening to, these are sort of like a budget-friendly headphone that actually packs some premium features. So the premium features that you get in these are a couple of things. One, these promise to have an all-metal housing, and if you've been watching my videos, you know that I'm a sucker for an all-metal housing headphone. Just anything made out of metal, I generally like that. The other premium feature that these things pack is the driver arrangement, okay? Some headphones out there, you get one driver, some headphones get two drivers. These headphones, per ear, you get 4 drivers, and 2 of those are gonna be a dynamic driver, which is the kind of driver you get in most headphones. And then 2 of those drivers are balanced armature drivers. Predictably, the dynamic drivers will handle the lower end frequencies, right? Like the bass and maybe like the lower mids. And then the balanced armature drivers are used for the high end. And in my experience, based on like my experience with the KZ headphones that also use balanced armature drivers, I think I like balanced armature drivers. They seem to give the sound like a really sharp punchiness without necessarily being, you know, like shrill, harsh treble. So that's my expectation for these, is that they're gonna have pretty good bass because of the dynamic drivers, but then they're also gonna have pretty punchy highs and hopefully upper mid-range. We'll see what they sound like. I actually don't know what they're supposed to sound like. We're gonna find out. So I'm gonna go ahead and unbox the TRN V80s. I'm going to show you what you get in the box, and then I'm gonna listen to them, put them up against my reference library of music, and let you know how they hold up, how these stack up against similarly priced KZ and maybe even like TIN Audio headphones. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the box real quick before we crack it open. There's not a lot of information on this thing. Around here in the back, again, not a lot of information unless you need to know the address of the company that manufactured it. There is some information here. It says it's a 3.5 millimeter jack, and the frequency response, I assume that's what that means, is between 70 to 40,000 hertz, or 7 to 40,000 hertz, which that's quite the range, that's quite the claim, but all these headphones seem to claim that. So we've not learned anything. Let's go ahead and open it up. All right, so what comes in the box of the TRN V80? Not a ton, but it's, you know, it's frankly all you need. You do get some good literature, you get a warranty card. I think that's instructions. I'm not gonna look at that. And you get this, which, let's see, is that like a pass card? Oh yeah, QC pass, that's nice. You get 3 sets of ear tips. You get large, small, and mediums, and it's got the mediums pre-installed. The smalls actually are not that small. I mean, they're small, but they're not the smallest I've seen. Worth making a note of that if you do have pretty small ear canals. So now down here we've got the cable. This is the cable that it comes with, and I am already kind of a fan of this cable. The terminal end looks nice. The cable is black, it's braided. Up here at the Y connector, it's got another metal housing, which again, I'm a sucker for the metal housings. Up here we do have a microphone with a 1-button remote on it, which I could frankly do without that, but I think that is an option. I think you can get these with and without the microphone. If I were shopping for this myself, I'd probably get it without the microphone, just because I'm never gonna connect this to a phone. And then another interesting thing about this cable is the hooks up here. So like the KZs that I tried out, the terminals have these little pin connectors and they've got a curved end to them. What's different is that this curve is, as far as I can tell, predetermined. It is not a metal rod that you can bend to whatever shape you want. It is a fixed curve that will always return to its original shape. Now you can probably mold it to some degree, but it doesn't have that metal wire in it, so it's not gonna be the same amount of bend. Personally though, I think I'm actually a fan of this because this becomes, one, it's more flexible and also less fragile. With the KZs, they were just constantly getting tangled up. And then if I pulled them apart, then the shape of it was lost anyway. So I think this is a better solution. We'll see if I actually like it in practice. And then we get to the buds themselves, which as promised are all metal housing. The ones I've got here have a blue anodized style color to them. You can also get these in black. I think the blue's pretty handsome. It's interesting seeing the blue buds as sort of a contrast with the red insides of the ear tips. These ear tips kind of remind me of like a spin foot design where they've got a color on the inside, but I don't think they're doing any spinning on the inside. So that's about as much as I can tell you about the TRN V80s without listening to them. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and hook them up to the Walkman, listen to some Michael Jackson, listen to some Grammatic, a number of different songs that I really like listening to compare different headphones. I'll listen to them and I'll come back and I'll let you know if these things, these 8 drivers, right, 4 drivers per headphone, how these things sound and how they compare to something like the KZ ZS10s. All right, so I've been listening to the TRN V80s for quite a bit now. Been going back and forth with these and a couple of other budget IMs in the same like $40 to $50 price range, right? I've been comparing these with the TIN Hi-Fi T2s and the KZ ZS10s. I think they're all roughly in the same price range and they all have their own advantages and disadvantages. All right, so to start with, let's talk about build quality because I think that's the thing that the TRNs really do the best. The build quality on these is fantastic. All right, so as I pointed out when I was unboxing them, the TRN V80 is an all metal housing, which is, I'm a sucker for all metal housings. It just feels nice. And then the other thing I really like about this, especially compared to the KZ headphones, is that it's a relatively small bud. The KZs are pretty large housings. These, pretty compact. They fit in my ear much, much better. I don't have any issue at all getting these things to sit in my ear, stay in my ear, and then also get a really nice seal out of them. So yeah, the TRN V80, just in terms of the bud design and the build quality, I'm a big fan. The other aspect of the TRN's build quality that I really like is this cable. This is a nice cable, especially compared to the cable that I got with the KZ headphones, okay? A couple of things that I really like about this cable. One, it's just a nice braided style, and I'm a sucker for that. I think most people are a sucker for the braided style. It lies well, it doesn't get tangled, it doesn't seem to transmit audio into the headphone. Generally, I like the design and the look of this cable. Other things that are nice is, like the little Y splitter here is a nice little metal housing. The end connector here is a metal housing, and again, I'm a sucker for metal housings, so I like that. Also, the KZs, this Y connector thing here was a little bit big and a little bit sharp edged, so it got caught on things. No issue at all with the TRNs here. The other thing that's nice about these cables is these hooks at the end. So with the KZs, they come with hooks as well. They're like a memory wire where you can bend it into any shape you want. These, on the TRN, the hook is predetermined. And that might seem worse, right? It's not as customizable, but in my opinion, this is a much, much better solution for 2 reasons. Okay, so one, when it's just kind of at rest, you can see there's no real gap between the earbud and the hook. And that just means that it's a little bit less likely to get tangled up on itself. With the KZ headphones, I felt like the hooks were just constantly getting tangled with the cable, and I haven't had that issue with the TRNs. The other thing that I like is that because the memory or the shape of this is baked into the shape of the cable, I don't really have any issue with, accidentally stretching out the shape of it and undoing the hook. With the KZs, I felt like I was just, every time I was putting them on, I was having to reshape it to my ear, and I just don't have to do that with the TRN cable. I think that's just much, much less fiddly. So that much I like better. The one thing that I don't like quite as much about this cable, and maybe this is actually more a matter of the design of the earbud itself, is that the way that the cable plugs into the earbud, you probably can't see it. I'll give you a close-up. But the way that this plugs in, there's just 2 pins that plug in, and the housing of the connector, it seems to have a notch in it where, you know, on the KZ headphones, the connector, the plastic housing fits into the earbud a little bit, and it just makes it a little bit more secure, and it makes sure that there's no pressure on those pins. With this design, there's no such pressure relief. All of the lateral torsion on this is going to be applied directly to the pins, and I don't have any issue with it. Like, frankly, they're very secure. They seem like they're pretty strong pins, but I could see that in the long run being a weak point of this cable. Okay, so let's talk about sound quality, and that's where my feelings about the TRN V80 are a little bit more mixed. Compared to, okay, let's start with the Tin Hi-Fi T2s. Compared to those, these have, I think, a much stronger bass, and the mids are slightly recessed compared to the T2s. I think that the V shape on this is not super strong, and it's mostly, you know, in the mid bass where it's a little bit humpy, and at the high end where it gets a little bit peaky. But so generally, like the sound signature of this versus the T2s more neutral, if that's what you want. This is a little bit more V-shaped, maybe a little bit more fun depending on your tastes. So that's how that compares. And then compared to the KZ ZS10, I think they're actually fairly similar in terms of frequency response and the things that they bias, but they do actually sound quite a bit different. In my opinion, the ZS10s, I like the sound of those better. I think that they're just a little bit faster, a little bit sharper, a little bit punchier, while delivering roughly the same balance of, you know, frequency response. And then these things, I think, have 2 problems with them. And one of them is that mid-bass hump that I mentioned. The mid-bass on this feels a little bit bloated, okay? And what that just means is that, you know, songs that have a really strong bass line, it can start to overpower the mids just a little bit. It's not a big issue for me, frankly, and generally, like, I think the bass on these is really satisfying and enjoyable, especially coming away from something like the T2s, which I think the T2s do bass fine, but the bass on this is just a lot more fun. The price of it is that mid-bass hump, which muddies up the mids a little bit, but that's a trade-off that some people are super happy to make. The bigger problem for me with the TRN V80s is the highs, and I think this is a surprisingly sibilant headphone, especially straight out of the box. Okay, so like most earbuds, these came with 3 different sizes of ear tips. There were small, mediums, and large. And as I was unboxing it, I noticed that the medium ear tips, the bore in the center was actually a little bit larger than it was on both the small and the large tips. And those are the tips I started listening to with. And I frankly was really shocked at how sibilant this headphone was. Listening to music with sharp cymbal crashes or, you know, vocals that are very sibilant. Freddie Mercury is a really good example. If you want to listen to like some Queen, another one, Bites the Dust, that's a song that will highlight the sibilance of a headphone. If there's any issue with sibilance with a pair of headphones, that song's going to show it to you. And I was really surprised that songs I didn't even think were necessarily sibilant were sounding pretty sibilant with the V80s. Frankly, I was pretty surprised at how sibilant it was, and it got me thinking maybe it was down to the ear tips. So I actually tried on the small ear tips that have the smaller bores, and it improved things quite a bit, to the point that I'm actually really happy with the sound of this. It is still a sibilant sounding headphone, and I'm sorry for that. That's probably not even coming through the way that I want it to, but I think it is still a sibilant sounding headphone. But with the smaller tips, it's tame enough that I'm pretty comfortable listening to it, and this is a fun headphone just to wear around the house. It's not my favorite headphone, but I like it quite a bit. Compared to the T2s, I generally prefer the T2 sound signature, but again, if you're looking for a little bit more bass, you probably prefer the TRN V80s versus the ZS10. I like the sound signature of the ZS10 better. I think it's just a little bit crisper, and I think it's much more comparable to the TRNs than the tin T2s are. But for me, my ears just reject the ZS10. So for me, this is between the ZS10 and the TRN, I would pick these headphones right here. Between these and the 10 T2s, Gee, get your names together, people. Between these two headphones, personally, my personal preference is the tin T2s, but I think a lot of people will like the TRN V80s. So if I were to rate the TRN V80 out of 5 stars, I'd give it a solid 4 stars out of 5. If it didn't have those sibilance issues, I think this would be a pretty solid 5-star headphone. But I mean, the sibilance is an issue for me. And I like a bright headphone, let's be frank. Like, I'm a Grado fan, and these are pretty sibilant. With the stock ear tips, the medium-sized ear tips, I was really not that happy with this headphone. I would probably call it like a 3 out of 5, and like maybe even problematic enough that it was a 2 out of 5, but just swapping the ear tips solved the problem enough that, yeah, I'm really happy with this. 4 out of 5 for the TRN V80. If you're interested in checking out the V80 on Amazon, I do have links to Amazon. Wait, I just said that. If you're interested in checking out the TRN V80 on Amazon, I do have links in the description down below. While you're down there, you can hit the like button for the video. If you like the video, you can subscribe to the channel, and then I'll see you on the next super review.